Oh, yeah, I did hear about some of them coming over.
Room for another person up
We used to have a conference room at my office, now it's just.
front there.
Right.
Well, right now the traffic building got taken out with flood control, so we've got.
All right, I will call our November 7th Committee on Childcare meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Can you take the roll call? I know we've got some people online and some people here, so if you can
Sure.
take a roll call.
Becker? Boyko?
Here.
Burlingame? Symbolic?
Here.
Jenkins? Kuhn?
Here.
Olson?
Here.
Oswald? Roselli Sullivan?
Here.
Samuelson?
Here.
Schmaltz? That's everybody.
All right, thank you. So we're going to roll into the first, well, I'll back up. I'm amending the agenda and I'm adding an item 3A. Doug Diedrichson will be giving us an update from the Planning Commission. So we'll alter the agenda in that way. But we will start with number 2. And this is, we're going to go through a community childcare survey. There are a group of stakeholders within the community that are working with First Children's Finance to look at childcare availability, needs, and such, so that we have a formalized survey to base decisions on in the future. So I think all of you have the link, but I thought it would be helpful for us to actually just go through question by question and see if you're kind of in line with what's being asked. And if we're missing anything, we can add those suggestions at the end. So Jen has it pulled up on the screen for us. And the survey is not live, so we are going to answer it. Doesn't matter what our answers are because it won't be officially submitted at this point. But we'll just look through question by question. So number 1, do you have children under the age of 6, or are you planning to start a family within the next 18 months? Any comments on that question? Michaela?
So I know I'm not a committee member, but I will say I hit no on this because mine is 14 and that ended the survey for me. I will say, thinking back though, you know, I have a 14-year-old, so I did go through daycare. I was also a daycare provider. So, I mean, it might be feedback as to, you know, there are still others, like if you have an older child, you've gone through this.
Okay. Yep.
Plus, I was also a provider for a year. So, I mean, there are other aspects I
Okay.
can bring to it.
Yeah.
Bring to answering it, but
Perspective.
by answering truthfully, it just said thank you.
Right. Any other comments on that question? Do you
I would
think there's-
just maybe change.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Stacey.
I would just maybe change the word children to dependents. I'm thinking about like my foster kids that are in my care, or anyone else that might be like a guardian, or are you a guardian of children, of dependents under the age of 6? I would just maybe change the language like a tiny bit.
Okay. Would you have children and dependents, or you would just strictly say dependents?
Children/dependents.
Yeah, something that just includes like if you're, you know, a guardian, or are you a guardian to children/dependents under the age of 6 is maybe what I would state. Or are you planning to, or do you foresee having children/dependents in the next 18 months?
Okay. And do we have an age recommendation other than 6? Or do we just want to say child/dependent?
I mean, I guess it's just a matter of, you know, if this survey is just about the now time, you know, like, that's fine, you know, then it's probably appropriate to, you know, 6 is normally the age when they're in kindergarten and you don't need the full-time childcare. I just thought it was kind of, you know, funny when I saw the thank you for your answering our
yes.
survey, because I was like, well, I'm still a parent. I still went through childcare and I was a provider at one point. So, yeah, I think it's
it's meant to be in our current state.
Okay.
Okay,
The only thing I would weigh in on that is in the summer, I have kids, ranging from 6 to 12, and like a pretty decent program. Like I'll have about 10 kids between the ages of 6 and 12. A lot of them are, especially with childcare assistants, a lot of the kids that I have in the summer are siblings of younger kids that are in my program. Their family copay doesn't change if they enroll their children with me in the summer. So they can save on CLC costs by sticking with one provider.
okay, that's a good perspective.
I was going to lend the same thoughts. Going into the holiday break here, the kids have 2 weeks off of school. And so, that care now is an issue for that 2 week time period. So I know other families are in the same boat for childcare. I don't know if after 6 should be the stopping point.
Okay. All right, that's why we're taking this survey. Thank you. Anything else on question 1? Question 2, do you live or work in the Minot, North Dakota area? Any changes there, suggestions?
What we might want to just say a radius or within city limits, if that matters. Maybe it doesn't.
I think it could.
Yeah, because a small town, someone who lives in a nearby small town, their response potentially could. They might have a more challenging time getting childcare in their town, or opposite. It could be the opposite of that.
Right, and I think, working is an important word in that question because, yeah, they might be living in Surrey or Burlington, but they're working in Minot and they want to
Right.
find the childcare in Minot.
Maybe just within Minot city limits or Minot area, 15-mile radius, or just defining what that area is.
Doug?
Just knowing commuting trends and things, there may be people that live and work in Burlington but have to travel into Minot in order to find childcare.
True.
There just might not be any available there, so they're driving into town, dropping their kids off, and then driving back out to where they came from because that's the closest provider. I mean, we've heard about the wait lists and whatnot. Could just be the closest place they could find it.
Is a 20-mile radius seem okay?
That would be the bulk of our commuter shed as far as like our economic development surveys have shown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments on question 2? All right, Jennifer, you can bring us to the next one. So this would help us talk about that radius by answering question number 3. So what zip code do you reside in? And find out if it's Surrey, Burlington, Granville, whatever. Okay.
So if we're gathering that information, if we're gathering that information, I mean, yes, add a radius, but if someone's driving in, I mean, there are people in this community that I know drive in from Garrison to work. I'm worried about limiting our data. Who knows what we'll get from that area, right? But why would we limit that data if we're then going to collect a zip code? Just food for thought.
And so I guess the only response I'll give to that, and we'll get to this at the end, but where are we going to publish this survey? And right now, I think we'll put it on the City of Minot website. I think MAC-EDC has indicated that they could put it on their website. So I don't know if people who are living in Garrison will be watching those. That would be my only concern.
Could you eliminate question number 2, keep question number 3, and then add 3.5 that says, what zip code do you work in? And then you would just have the zip codes, and then whoever is sorting through this data could do whatever they want with that information. Just a thought.
Other comments?
Work in or reside in? I want to make sure I understand, Heather. Are you thinking work in or reside in?
I mean, you could split it into 2 separate questions, because then you would have that. There's just more data you would collect in that circumstance, because then you could say, okay, well, we have this group of people that reside in Minot, 5870113, whatever it might be. Then we also have this other group, but they live here. So you could pull the data of people who live out of town that are commuting to where if you just ask that first question, you're kind of making assumptions, I guess. It's just food for thought. Someone who does surveys would be a lot more knowledgeable in this area, but that's where my brain has taken me.
All right, Doug?
From an economic development kind of standpoint, we would want to know where they live and where they work and where they're getting childcare provided, because that would give us a really good idea of that morning commute. Like, are you leaving Surrey, dropping your kid off in northern Minot, and then you work maybe in Burlington? You know, you might
Okay.
traverse the entire metropolitan area to get things done in the morning, and that would add to showing us, okay, so this is an additional burden to their childcare costs. They're spending extra money on mileage and gas and all of that stuff in order to find reliable childcare and be able to live and work where they want to.
We could add what zip code do you work in? And what zip code
Do you
is
have-
your childcare provider in?
Okay. So-
If you're
I'm
at,
a map guy. I would love to, trace that out. We could do
Right.
it like the majority of them are living in this zip code and working in this zip code, and their childcare is in that. We can do color maps that can show kind of where people are moving.
Okay.
so if you split it into those three questions, I think you'd also have to change question number 1, and add a 1.5 saying, because we're assuming if you have a kid 6 and under that they are going to childcare, but that might not be the case. In addition, does your child have childcare, or are you looking for childcare?
And I think we'll get to that, I think.
Okay.
Yep, I think
It
that's
just would probably be the order of how
yeah.
they're answering, to where if they're not seeking childcare or aren't currently getting childcare, then we wouldn't ask them where that is.
Okay.
So again, someone that's smarter than me with surveys, but that's where my brain goes.
Okay. Let's see. Other comments? Okay, and I'm trying to keep notes so they'll be able to get that back to them. Let's see, work. All right, back to the questions. And if you can bring that up on the screen, Jennifer, I can't see it in front of me.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, so number 4, how many children do you have under the age of 5? And if you are expecting a child or children, increase the number of children accordingly. Is that one okay? Okay. Number 5, do you currently use paid childcare? And I think we'll get to that point where, we know that there are children who are being cared for by grandparents or, aunt and uncle, that kind of thing. So does the question make sense? Okay. All right, so here's a long one. Number 6, what kind of childcare do you use? So a center childcare, unlicensed childcare in another home, family childcare, group childcare. And I'm glad that they are putting the definitions in there for us too, so that when people are taking the survey, they can understand which one they should answer. A preschool program, Head Start, early Head Start, a nanny or babysitter, or they do have the opportunity to put in other. Is that encompassing enough for options that would be out there?
If they select other, does it require the copy?
I think they will have to put something in there. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know
Take
if
your
we
child to
wanna-
work. I don't, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm not sure if we want to differentiate between center-based childcare, because sometimes there are group childcare providers that are in a center, but that might be getting a little too convoluted, I think.
Weeds.
Say that again, Kelly.
Getting in the weeds.
Oh, getting the weeds, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is sufficient.
So Stacy, which one would be the best option then?
I think even well, yeah, I think this is a good idea. Just to leave it a little bit more simplified. I mean, for instance, I'm an M license. I don't think that needs to be on there. That it's an in-home childcare and preschool. I don't know how many of us are out there that are in home. And then group can be group in facility or group in home. But again, I think we get the picture as far as but I guess we could ask, as far as data collection, as long as we're getting the full picture of facility versus in home, I think that this currently is sufficient.
Okay. Other comments on that? I think, if I remember correctly, it's been about a week since I went through this, but I think we're going to get to the point of the importance of the childcare being licensed. So I think that's why unlicensed is listed in this question, because it's good to know if that's an important aspect that parents are looking for.
I would agree with that. That should definitely be on there just to keep track of that.
The unlicensed childcare in another home, and then in parentheses, friend, family, neighbor, isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are childcare facilities in a home that are also unlicensed.
I believe so.
I just want to make sure that is that kind of the question that we're trying to ask?
I think on this one, if I remember back to the committee, and Kelly helped me out, I think it was more, is it a formalized situation? Do you have
Yeah.
a contract with this provider, that kind of thing? Or is it when we need you, grandma, can you take them kind of thing?
Right, because there's full-time childcare centers in a home formalized agreement, but they're not licensed.
True. I think, yeah, I think you're right.
So I just want to make sure that we're not
Or that should be
added
added. Or
to, like, as a slash after neighbor, maybe?
Okay.
Does that
Do you
make
think it should be
sense?
after neighbor, or should it be completely different?
I think it should be separate. Because I see unlicensed childcare in another home, or maybe we don't even have to use unlicensed, cared for by friend, family, or neighbor.
Do you think that'll matter when we get to the upcoming question about licensure being important?
Yeah. I haven't looked at the survey in a week either.
I would think I would rather add another option to say licensed childcare in another home.
Unlicensed.
Well, we have unlicensed, but add licensed.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Is it family childcare at home?
Yeah, I think we
Oh,
already
yes, it
cover
is.
that.
Yep,
I
yep,
think what we're
okay.
not covering is an unlicensed facility type.
Okay,
Are those
Does that make
legal?
sense?
okay, yep. I mean,
Up to a certain number of kids,
Yeah.
you wouldn't require.
Right?
I was going to weigh in order to run like an unlicensed childcare out of a home, you would have to have, I think, less than 5 kids. Otherwise, it's basically illegal, and that includes your own children. So, unlicensed care / family friend or neighbor is kind of, I don't know how many facilities we're seeing that would be unlicensed care or like formalized, or how many people would have. Does that make sense? Like, I think that it's such a low, like they might have like a few kids. You might be like a friend watching 2 friends' kids, and you might have less than 5 kids, but that would be the bulk of what I would assume we'd have for unlicensed care. And it could be one category to make it simple.
okay.
I think there's still value in that data though, because I specifically have friends that don't have children in daycare because they can't get in, and they have a sibling who's a stay-at-home mom watching their kids. So there's still value in that data. Because those then are, if we didn't count them, then those are kids that are unaccounted for when we're looking at the grand scheme of numbers.
So then what I'm hearing is keeping unlicensed childcare in another home. Am I,
And then adding friend, family, neighbor as its own.
Yes,
okay,
that's where I was going.
okay,
Yeah.
Or trying to say
Yeah.
earlier.
okay. I got you.
I would agree with that because friend, family, or neighbor could be in your home, unlicensed care in another home. Absolutely. Even my daughter was providing unlicensed care as a nanny over the summer out of somebody else's home. So that was, yeah, I think those could be differentiated to not miss any data points.
Okay. Any other comments on question 6? All right, we'll move on to 7. What hours of care do you need? I do not remember if they can choose more than one. Yeah, let's find out. So, but are we covering the possible needs? Daytime, evening, overnight, rotating shift, weekend? Are we missing anything? Oh, yes, that's a good one. And actually, now one of the newest childcares is offering date night. Good catch, Jen. Yeah. Okay, we're good with 7. All right, number 8. How many hours per workday do you need childcare? Self-explanatory. Less than 8, 8 to 10, 11 to 14, or 15 to 24. So that one's probably fine. Okay. So number 9, how many hours of childcare do you need per week? None. Less than 20, 20 to 35, or more than 35.
I think we need to add another tab after that.
Okay.
Beyond, like, figure out your regular 40-hour work week, but then you have those people that work a strange schedule. It might be interesting, just again, interesting
Non-traditional
data.
hours.
Yeah,
Non-
somebody that
non-traditional.
works a 60-hour work week, but then they're off, that would be your rotating schedule people.
Yeah. So
There
yeah,
might be value in
I
that.
can think oil and energy. I can think fire department. I can think some medical. Yeah. Okay.
Military,
Military. Yeah.
Missileers who are out 7 days on a stretch. It might be a single parent.
So if we add non-traditional, do we want to give them the option of saying how many hours?
Yeah.
I know my son works 48 hours on and 96 hours off. So, yeah, okay. All right, number 10. What is your preferred type of childcare? And here they do have options. They can choose more than one. A centered childcare, unlicensed childcare in another home, family childcare, group childcare, preschool, Head Start, early Head Start, nanny or babysitter. So this certainly mirrors what we were asking in question 6. So I would think this one should mirror that question as well, right? Any other suggestions for that one? Nope, okay. Moving on. Number 11, if your child is not currently enrolled in your preferred type of childcare, what are the reasons? Again, they'll get to answer as many as are necessary. Wasn't accepting enrollment, doesn't exist in my community, is too expensive, is not conveniently located, is not open for extended or non-traditional hours. My children are not the right age for my preferred arrangement. That one's a little bit worded a little strangely in my mind. And then my children are enrolled in my preferred type of care. I have to look at, my children are not the right age for my preferred arrangement. Would you be able to answer that one? Because I think I'd have a hard time.
I mean,
That
I
would make
think of
sense
it-
to me, but
I would think of it as something like, if my school-age child ended up going to a home daycare instead of a CLC because
Okay.
of different, reasons where maybe they're not
Okay.
around kids their own age.
Yep, that makes sense. And as Jennifer had indicated, in some of those check marks, maybe they're in a home daycare, but you'd really like them to be in Head Start. Maybe that's what it is. Okay. Other suggestions on that question? Okay, we'll move on. Number 12, has the availability of your preferred childcare option impacted your decisions to have another child or limit the size of your family?
that's a great and valuable question.
Should it be a required answer? Because that came up, I think, in discussion. Maybe some people don't prefer to answer that, but we can
Could
make
that-
some. We can make some that are
could-
not mandatory to answer.
But
Or-
I
or
think
you
there's
add
extreme
it.
value in this.
You either make it required or you add a prefer not to answer it.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
I agree with that because childcare was 100% reason why we stopped having kids.
And I think that, yeah.
There's
we've
a
heard- we've heard
great
that from
data
other
in that.
families, yeah.
Just food for thought. Has the ability of your preferred childcare option. So I feel like a lot of it is financial reasons. And to me, that just says I couldn't get into a daycare, so I decided to not expand my family. Does that make sense? Like, to me, it feels like two different things. I can't pay for another child in daycare. It doesn't matter in this survey, I don't know, but
So what would you suggest?
like health or have childcare related issues or problems or something like that impacted your decision, like more generic? Or are we wanting to know just the availability question?
So are you more asking the financial impact? So does the financial cost impact your decision to have additional children?
Should they be two separate questions?
Yeah, because to me, it's two different things. Like the stress of not being able to find childcare for my child has made me make this decision, or the financial piece has made me make this decision. And I don't know that it's the same.
Right, I think I would rather split that question out and ask both availability.
Like
and
the
finances.
affordability
Yep,
and then the availability, like two separate things.
yep.
I'm not sure if there's more things that would impact that decision, but affordability and availability to me stand out as two reasons why you may make that decision.
Other comments?
Just to add multiple answers. Affordability was the factor, availability was the factor, affordability and availability were both factors, or
Okay.
no.
Okay.
You know, instead of trying to,
Yeah,
do you think, I'm thinking about length of survey. People get survey fatigued and then they just, I'm done with this, it's taking me too long.
yeah, okay,
Giving them a way to split it out within their answer as opposed to giving them more questions to
Okay.
answer.
And then
Okay.
you'd have to have one saying no
Yeah.
that didn't impact my decision.
let's see. So number 13, how far do you travel out of your way one direction to your childcare provider? Well, we probably already covered that earlier.
If we do ask them for the zip codes of
Right.
both, we're gonna, well,
So would you?
the zip codes, we got two, they're big, and even you can be, all of this could be in 703 and you're still 5 miles apart, you know?
Okay, so you think keep the question?
I would just say just getting zip codes may or may not actually give you an accurate picture of whether, you know what I mean? Because you can live on the northeast side of town and have to drive all the way to the northwest side of town, and you're still in the same zip code.
Okay. Other comments?
I don't know what answer we're trying to get, what information we're trying to gather from this question, but you could maybe do it as about how long does it take you one direction. So you could do minutes instead of miles if you wanted, just food for thought.
What does the committee prefer? Minutes or miles?
Yes, yeah.
I got 3 kids at 3 different schools now, a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school. It's the minutes that matter to me because I still have to be to work at 8, you know?
Yeah. So you think minutes is a
I
better
was
way
just-
to ask? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think minutes is a more relevant way to ask because it also depends on what time of day you're traveling, the amount of miles and how far you get and how long it takes.
Okay. Other comments on question 13? Okay, well, click on one, Jennifer, and we'll move on to 14. All right, as it relates to your current employment and your childcare arrangement, please select all that apply that have occurred to you in the last 12 months. So you've had no issues related to work and childcare, you've been tardy to work, you've had an inability to work overtime, you've been absent from work, an inability to be fully productive at work, an inability to work different shifts. I think it should be shifts and not shirts. Inability to travel related to work, not considered for a promotion, and inability to accept a promotion. Those are all our options. Thoughts on this one? Is it inclusive enough? I have to look back now. One question that I think, if it's not in here, would be inability to accept a position, because I know that that has happened.
I think that's a great thing to include, Lisa, because it might even just be where it says not considered for promotion. Accepting a position might just be a type of job, but they may not find the type of childcare that they need for a new job, let's say.
I don't know if it matters again, but the issue of returning back to work from maternity leave is something this committee has discussed a few times. And in that maybe fits in this question or not.
I think it could.
But I know that's definitely, like, even for myself, I had to go back to work a month later than I had anticipated. And for some jobs, there wouldn't be a job
Right, yep.
if that was the case. So I think that is relatively good information to have.
Okay. Any other suggestions?
I think that's a really relevant question, especially with waiting list. Yeah, it's a great comment.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we are. Have you ever declined employment or withdrawn from the workforce due to childcare issues? So does that cover the last 2 suggestions that we made? Okay. All right, so you can answer one of those probably answer yes, Jennifer, so we can keep going. Number 16, what are the most important characteristics you look for in choosing a childcare provider, and then rank them? So, provider has achieved a high level of education, credential, or bright and early North Dakota rating. Provider demonstrates a safe and healthy environment. Provider uses an educational curriculum. Provider is conveniently located. Provider tuition rates are affordable for my family. Provider is licensed by the North Dakota Department of Human Services. Provider is a friend, family member, neighbor, or someone I have a personal relationship with. Does that seem
I don't
encompassing
know how to
enough?
say this, but I am grateful that I have a childcare facility that meets my desires of what I'm looking for. However, there are some people that simply are going to take the first opening. So I don't know how that plays in. Like, I would probably just click around on this and then go to the next one because of that.
So just provider has availability? Is that an option?
Maybe. Or maybe you could just change it to, what are the most important? Sorry, I'm thinking and talking at the same time. Change it to if availability wasn't a factor, please rate these characteristics.
I feel
Something-
like that would
something like that?
confuse them.
I'd have to think on this one a little bit, but I don't
It's a lot to
disagree with you either. Yeah, I could think about this one too, but it just feels to me like if you add that as an answer, I feel like that's going to be the obvious first answer, regardless of whether,
Yeah.
I don't know, because to me, you're like, well, yeah, they have to have availability, so I'm going to put that first, and then the other ones. I don't know. But yet, to me, I think capturing, I think part of the lack of childcare problem also comes down to our choices being taken away from us as parents because we don't get to consider all of this when there is no availability.
Okay.
And so I don't know how you capture that, but it's just something that seems could be
Or
important.
something, yeah, if all providers had availability, which characteristics would you like? Does
Yes.
that make sense? Okay.
I think I agree with that. I mean, just to shed some light on that, a lot of times when I'm filling an opening, I might have 90 people on the wait list, but most of those people, like 99% of them, have already found care and settled into that care. So they're not really weighing out, what they feel is best at the time. Ultimately, they end up having to go with what's available. And generally speaking, they kind of settle in there, they get used to it, and they're not really switching. So I think it's okay to add that clause because that is something that we routinely see.
Okay. Any other comments on this question? You can rank them however you want, Jennifer. I think it's fine. All right, number 17, how would you rate the availability of childcare options in Minot and the surrounding area? That one seem okay. I don't know what the other option would be. I don't know.
Point.
18, please share the reasoning for your response to the above question. So, just give them. Yep. All right, number 19. Let's see. Keep track here. 19. How would you rate the quality of childcare options in Minot and the surrounding area? Again, that's going to be their perspective, and they can share why they want or why they're making that answer. And then 21, there is a documented shortage of childcare in the Minot area. Please describe why you think there is a shortage of childcare in the area. I think that'll be interesting. All right, so 21 questions, Doug. Are they going to stick through for 21 questions?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
It's the balancing act when you're doing a survey. How you want the information that you need, but
Yeah.
20 questions is a long survey.
After these edits are made, are we able to see the survey again
I
before it
think
goes
so.
out?
So I will.
I do a lot of surveys. I don't know.
I'll
Maybe-
change,
maybe
or,
I
yeah,
can
I'll make,
help.
I will submit the changes and the suggestions that this committee makes, and they'll just make the changes as long as, everyone is in agreement. We're not the only ones that are looking at this, but,
Absolutely.
yes, I think the survey can be sent out prior to it being live. However, I know they want to make it live this month.
Oh,
So
Next week, actually.
I think
Oh.
so, yeah.
never mind.
I would recommend that at the beginning of the survey, when it says like, thank you for taking our survey, because of fatigue that was mentioned earlier, that survey fatigue, it is realistic to put, the completion of the survey will take you 10 minutes
Okay. You think 10
or
minutes is
15 minutes
appropriate?
or,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever they deem accurate.
Can it be completed in 10 minutes?
I think where possible, trying to shorten the verbiage on some of those would be beneficial.
Okay.
And it would shorten the length of time it takes to take it as well, because some of them are a little wordy.
Yeah, especially the one to put in order.
Yeah. Those ranking and order ones take a very long time to do. So I guess maybe thinking of what we're trying to get from that and if that's worth potentially losing people in the fatigue process because of that question.
I'll just say, like, as a provider, the ranking and order one is really interesting. Like I participate in Bright and Early, and I've achieved like step 4, but I honestly don't know how many parents know what that is or what that entails. And even my own clients, I'm like, I don't think they know like the amount of work that I put in to do that. So I would like to keep it if that's okay. I think as providers, it's like really relevant for us to see like where time and energy is being used, or like even just taking that and being like, oh wow, they really don't know about this program. Maybe it's important for us to talk about it more. I don't know. I think that's a good one.
Okay. Well, now that we've gone through the questions, is there support from the committee for it to be made available to the community?
Pending considering the changes, because there are some gaps there, I think.
Okay.
Agreed.
Anyone in disagreement? All right. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we'd like to see it published on the City of Minot website, the MACEDC website. Are there other suggestions? I am unaware of a website on the base, but to me, I think if there was availability to add, I don't know, what experience do you have trying to get information out there?
There's avenues that I can cover for that. Family Readiness Center
Okay.
would be one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, any nonprofit or even any school that would be willing to share it on their social media pages would maybe be beneficial too.
You could ask, yeah. I don't know how willing they are to do that, but we could try.
I will. Just the more people with kids that can see it, I think the better. So
Yep.
I know, well, I don't see that Amy Jenkins is in the room today.
She's not.
Is that something that could be, like, is there some type of contact list that could be distributed that way too? I understand that it might be just providers, but, there's gotta be some type of contact there.
Stacy, are
That
you
makes sense.
familiar with anything that any information Amy would be putting out?
I'm not, I really feel like, yeah, Kara or Amy could email us all as providers within a link to the email and say, please share this with your families. I do routinely get emails from Kara, and they're to, all people that she's licensed under. So I think that would work.
Okay. Obviously, the more information we can get, the better. Okay. I think that we're done discussing the survey unless anyone has anything else. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which was current childcare availability. I was hoping, so we've got Stacy here. Maybe from your insight, Stacy, I was hoping that some of the providers would maybe be able to share what you're seeing as far as wait lists. But go ahead and fill us in with your experience, Stacy.
Sure. Yeah. I think we've been getting less phone calls. I usually go by influx of phone calls. It's slowed down a little bit. It comes in waves. Usually the beginning of the school year and around January is when we'll start to see the biggest influx in calls. And right now it's a little bit of a slow period. It feels like people have kind of settled in. So I'm not seeing like as much as I was maybe a year or two ago.
Okay. And what would you relate that to? Is there more availability currently, or what do you, I know we had one larger center that opened up as the school year was starting. Has that made a difference?
I think so. In fact, actually, if I were to recall, like on feedback from my local child care provider page, there were a few like home child care providers that were commenting on like, where are you guys finding kids? So I would assume it's been a little bit harder for some people to fill spots. That's what I would guess. I know there's been at least two different providers commenting on having a difficult time finding kids. Or I know of a friend recently that contacted me that said her home provider is shutting down because she couldn't fill her openings. So it seems logical to just assume that the centers that were opening up were maybe filling some of those spots.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Any other comments related to this? All right. I will turn it over to Doug. He's provided some information for us, but we'll go ahead and Jennifer's going to bring it up on the screen, I think. And let us know what happened.
Oh, all right. So, if you guys might recall, you asked me to bring to the Planning Commission. Currently, you're allowed to run a commercial daycare center out of a commercial building, and as you can see under 2, daycare centers shall be located in non-residential buildings, e.g. churches, indoor recreation facilities, educational facilities. So as of right now, we have 2 classifications in the LDO. One is home-based, owner-occupied. It essentially falls under our home-based business ordinance, and one falls under a commercial business. So I brought it to the Planning Commission, if we were to get a provider that wanted to purchase a residential structure and operate a daycare facility out of it and not live there, what would you guys want to look at? What would you want to assess? Because it would be a conditional use permit. They very much were in support of, yes, they need to bring us a conditional use permit in order to do this. It has the potential for nuisance generation. So conditional use permit, again, we'll review in the LDO, means you are allowed to do this. It is a use you are allowed to do. However, the Planning Commission, as the approving authority for conditional use permits, has the authority to impose conditions under which you can do it. It's a shall issue permit. It makes a difference. If you meet all the conditions, you should be granted your permit. So they discussed it. So one of the things that brought up is prior to purchasing a property, we would very much encourage this operator to come and meet with the planning division and review the site they have selected, and also participate in a DRT meeting, a development review team meeting. This means that this is a free meeting provided by development staff for the city, planning, building inspecting, fire, engineering. All of those departments are represented at these meetings, and we can kind of look at your site and give you recommendations about, okay, these are the requirements you're going to have from us in order to get your permits on this site. Comply with all state building and fire codes. That is, it's added to almost all of our conditions, but it's required regardless. So we kind of added as boilerplate so that people know that that's a requirement. That would be covered in that DRT meeting. We'd want them to meet all state and local licensing requirements. That'd be those daycare licenses through Ward County Social Services. A traffic impact study may be required at the discretion of the city engineer, and any traffic improvements would be at the expense of the developer. Now, it's important to point out that if you're opening one of these commercial daycare centers in a commercial building, the developer of that commercial building would have already had to do this. So by bringing it into a residential neighborhood, you are stepping outside of what would have a traffic impact study done for it. Our residential neighborhoods and the infrastructure within them is designed for residential use, not for commercial use. So the commission was pretty set on, if this is going to have a traffic impact, we need to have a traffic impact study, which would be required of commercial developers. Sound mitigation, that's one that came up. If you're going to have 18 kids in a house, mitigating that sound from the neighbors, we may require. It really depends on the site. Planning Commission has gotten so granular on some of these conditional use permits, like you need to put up a sound mitigating fence on the west side of this property. So it may not be you got to go out and buy a $40,000 fence to go around the whole yard. It might be there's a nursing home adjacent. You have to put up a sound fence between there, or we want it on the west and south side so that you're not disturbing the other neighbors. You get a corner lot. The next big one that they were worried about is parking. You're going to have staff and traffic flow. So a site plan addressing traffic flow and parking would be required by them to be submitted with their letter of intent and their application package. And we did have a long discussion on this. Like, staff can get creative. If you find a house that's next to a church, well, the church is off peak when the daycare is on peak. We would allow for things like shared parking agreements. Another thing that was brought up by Vice Chair Bauman is if you have if we're in a residential neighborhood, if you have half of your clients so for a shared parking agreement, it has to be within 300 feet. The parking lot you're sharing has to be within 300 feet of your property. Well, what if within 300 feet of your property, half your clients live? Well, then they can just walk their kids over. And they're also not generating additional traffic in and out of that neighborhood because they're already part of the traffic generated by that neighborhood. So getting creative with staff in parking and shared parking agreements and how much traffic are you really generating? That can all be assessed through that traffic flow and parking site plan. The other thing is they really wanted the notification area pushed out. So 300 feet is the normal notification buffer for all conditional use permits. We bumped it to 600. We felt like once you get out to 600 feet, now you're really hitting all of the people that may or may not be affected by the increased traffic and stuff that a daycare could create. So that is the long discussion. I think we talked on this for almost half an hour, 45 minutes. It was a good discussion.
So what is the status now? Was it approved by the Planning Commission?
No, so I just kind of brainstormed with them, like because they're the commission that's going to approve these. It can be appealed to city council if you don't like the planning commission's conditions. You can appeal a conditional use permit to city council and plead your case there. But the mass majority of the time they approve these. So what are you guys going to want to see when they bring you an application packet? And then from their recommendations, I just drafted what would be some sample language in the LDO. We'd also have to do a bunch of other stuff. We'd have to amend to remove that requirement that it just be in churches and in commercial buildings. We'd have to do a table amendment. Which residential zones would this actually be allowed by conditional use permit? Is it just rural residential in R1, larger lot residential, or are we willing to go down to your RMs and your RHs where the lot size can be significantly smaller, or we could be talking about a condo or a townhome or a duplex. That's all something that planning commission and staff are going to have to still discuss. I just wanted to bring that top level conversation. What are they going to want to see in an application? And in any residential zone where it's conditionally permitted, these are the items they would want included in a conditional use permit application packet. So if this committee feels that these are acceptable conditions, they don't really have any feedback, we could start crafting a text amendment to bring to planning commission. Likely the next round of planning commission text amendments would be our winter cleanup, which is January, February. Text amendments are heavy lift applications, so we like to do them in bundles. And we have a couple of other ones on the back burner to bring with this one as well. But we wouldn't be able to put this together for December. It would be January, February.
Yep. Questions or comments for Doug?
Doug, I think this is awesome. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to consider this. The one thing that I would suggest, I know that you guys were talking about like what residential area or what, and I'm not familiar with all the zones, so you have to excuse me. I would say that in some communities, they do offer what they might consider like micro centers. So they would hire like one teacher to work for like 6 different families. So that might fit into even like a condo, honestly, because you're not talking about 18 kids. You're just talking about like a preschool teacher and, 8 kids. So that's the only other feedback I really got from that. The rest of the sounds completely fair and appropriate when considering your neighbors and running a business out of a neighborhood.
I understand the zones, but I don't understand the licensing. And my understanding is it is tied to square footage. And that came in a conversation with the planning commission as well. Is one nice thing about conditional use is we get to assess each one of these granularly on the site. So my recommendation was just going to be make it conditionally permitted in all residential zones, because you have to bring that site plan. You have to show that this project works within the context of the site you've chosen. So I guess I didn't really have any concerns about it being in all zones. And like you said, if they wanted to set up just a micro center in a condo, as long as they can show that they're not going to generate nuisance within that condo association, and it's allowed by the bylaws of the condo association, then we're not interested in being a barrier to increasing childcare. We're creating a path. You have to show us how you can get from point A to point B on that path without disturbing the adjacent property owners, because that's what zoning is for, is to keep nuisances from being generated. But if you can show us it works, let's do it. If somebody in the condo association wanted to open it, and then now everybody in the condo association can walk their kid over every morning and go to work, I mean, that would be an awesome model for a lot of people. Okay. So
Yeah, honestly, I mean, when I look at like centers in Chicago, sometimes there is just a small childcare center at the first floor, and they commute to work. So not that we have that necessarily here, but yeah, that could be a model. So yeah, I think this is great. And like you said, it does go by square footage and number of people. I know, specifically for like my site, and I'm the one that would probably be looking at this to use it. I've even just considered not expanding, but just keeping it as one employee for my entire house. So that's, it's a lot of square footage for the amount of kids that I have, but in some respects, it's easier to operate by myself with a backup provider than it would be to operate with 21 kids and, 4 full-time staff.
Any other questions or comments for Doug? All right, thanks for bringing that to us. Keep us updated.
Do we need to say we approve you to move forward with this?
I don't think that I need a motion
Okay.
from this body. The approving body is going to be planning commission. I can bring this to them, and they'll make the motion to recommend approval to city council, who is the final decision-making body on ordinance changes.
Okay.
Okay. Number 4 is public comment. Either of you care to share anything with us? Nope. All right. Unless there's anything else, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.